During the reign of Emperor Kangxi of the Qing Dynasty, there lived a scholar in Qingzhou named Liu Mingyuan, courtesy name Ziqing. His family had fallen into decline, leaving him nothing but a few ancestral houses at the foot of Plum Ridge on the outskirts of the city. Liu had studied diligently from childhood and possessed a gentle and sincere nature. Too poor to rent lodgings at the academy in the city, he lived alone in his ancestral home, keeping only books and poems as his companions, hoping to succeed in the provincial examination the next autumn and win fame in one stroke. The ancestral home had long fallen into disrepair. In the courtyard stood an old plum tree over 100 years old, its gnarled branches twisting and spreading, blocking out the sky and the sun. Every harsh winter, the plum blossoms bloomed in profusion, their subtle fragrance drifting and filling the entire courtyard. Liu loved most to set a bamboo table under the plum tree, brew a pot of coarse tea, and read by lamplight late into the night, finding contentment in such simple pleasures. Yet the old house had always been desolate, and occasional rumors claimed that a woman had hanged herself there. Though Liu did not believe in ghosts and gods, he often heard faint sobbing late at night, faint and indistinct, lingering in his ears. One winter that year, heavy snow fell in flurries, and the plum blossoms bloomed more luxuriantly than ever. The old plum tree was covered in snow, like branches of jade and Chongji Yuya. Liu was reading until the third watch of the night, when suddenly he heard soft footsteps outside the window, accompanied by a faint scent of plum blossoms. Unlike the crisp fragrance of the plums in the courtyard, this scent carried a subtle sweetness. His heart stirred, he rose and pushed open the window, only to see a woman in a plain white silk dress standing in the snow. Slender in figure, she had a delicate and beautiful face, with a touch of faint sorrow in her brows, like a plum blossom blooming in the snow, elegant and refined, yet exuding an indescribable coldness. When the woman saw Liu looking at her, a flash of panic crossed her eyes, and she bent her knees slightly in greeting. Liu collected himself. Seeing that the woman behaved gently and did not look like an evil spirit, he invited her inside to take shelter from the snow. After a moment's hesitation, she glided into the room, her steps so light that they made no sound at all upon touching the ground. Liu felt a slight surprise but did not ask further. Once inside, Liu poured the woman a cup of hot tea. She took the cup, her fingertips ice cold without the slightest warmth, and the sorrow in her brows deepened. She introduced herself as Su Wanniang, saying that her family had met with misfortune and she was homeless. Caught in the heavy snow, she had strayed into the residence and begged Liu to take her in for the night. Taking pity on her, Liu tidied up the outer room and let her stay.
From then on, Wanniang visited Liu often. Sometimes she came late at night with a cup of hot tea, sometimes at dawn, bringing a bunch of freshly plucked plum blossoms. Other times, she sat quietly beside him as he read, not uttering a word. Gradually, Liu fell in love with this cold yet gentle woman, and Wanniang also developed affection for the kind and upright Liu. Yet she always remained calm and distant, the sorrow in her eyes never fading. She never appeared in daylight, nor would she speak of her past. Though Liu was puzzled, he refused to press her, assuming she had unspeakable troubles and growing more tender toward her. He often told her of his ambitions and the amusing stories in his books. Wanniang listened intently, and occasionally she discussed poetry and books with him, her words elegant and her insights unique. Liu became increasingly convinced that Wanniang was no ordinary woman. As they spent more time together, their love deepened, and they pledged their eternal love under the plum tree. Liu promised that once he passed the provincial examination, he would marry her in a grand and glorious ceremony. Tragedy struck on a rainy night. Liu returned from buying books in the city, soaked to the skin. Wanniang hurried forward to wipe him dry, her face filled with worry. Liu's heart warmed. He reached out and held her hand, only to see her hand suddenly turn transparent, her body gradually fading, pain and reluctance surging in her eyes. Liu was horrified, filled with utter confusion. Holding back her tears, Wanniang finally told Liu the truth. She was not a living person, but a lonely ghost trapped at Plum Ridge. 3 years prior, she had been the daughter of a wealthy family, in love with a childhood friend who was a scholar, but her parents had forced her to marry a spoiled wealthy young man. Unwilling to submit, Wanniang fled to Plum Ridge at night and hanged herself under the old plum tree, her spirit trapped there ever since. Drawn by Liu's gentle nature and the pure scholarly aura that warmed her icy soul, she had dared to appear and stay by his side. Wanniang was filled with guilt, knowing that, as a lonely ghost, she should not have fallen in love with Liu and delayed his future. She knew that with the heavy rain and rising yang energy that night, her soul would soon dissipate, and they would part forever. She only begged Liu to take good care of himself in the days to come, focus on his studies, and not grieve for her. Liu was struck as if by lightning, frozen in place, tears instantly blurring his vision. He clutched her fading hand tightly, his heart filled with sorrow and defiance. He insisted on seeking help from Taoist priests and immortals, hoping to save Wanniang and let her be reborn, to stay with her forever, refusing to accept their separation by life and death. Wanniang shook her head gently, her eyes filled with helplessness and longing. She knew that the divide between the living and the dead was heaven's will and could not be changed. Meeting Liu in this world and accompanying him for several months had been the greatest fortune of her afterlife. Her only regret was failing to keep their promise of a lifetime together. From her bosom, she took out a lustrous white jade hairpiece carved with a plum blossom, exactly the style Liu had once mentioned liking, and gave it to him as a memento, hoping he would think of her whenever he saw the hairpiece. Liu took the jade hairpiece. It was ice cold, still carrying Wanniang's faint plum scent. Before he could speak, Wanniang's figure grew more and more ethereal, gradually turning into a wisp of smoke that dissipated into the rainy night along with her subtle fragrance. Only a faint, "Take care, young master," lingered in his ears, echoing for a long time. Overwhelmed with grief, Liu held the jade hairpiece and wept under the plum tree all night. The next morning, the rain cleared and the sky brightened. The courtyard was covered in fallen plum blossoms, as if mourning Wanniang's departure. Looking at the empty courtyard, Liu was filled with longing and sorrow. He kept Wanniang's jade hairpiece close to his chest and continued reading under the plum tree every day. Yet the cold, gentle figure by his side was gone, leaving only endless loneliness. Days passed and Liu studied even harder. He turned his longing for Wanniang into motivation for his studies. The next autumn, he indeed succeeded in the provincial examination, becoming a jurin. He did not forget his promise to Wanniang. He specially invited a venerable monk to chant scriptures and perform rituals for Wanniang under the plum tree, hoping to lay her soul to rest and let her be reborn soon. After finishing the chanting, the monk told Liu that Wanniang's deep affection and obsession had trapped her in the mortal world. Now, with his prayers, her obsession had been lifted and she had been reborn. Yet her love for Liu had not faded, and she would always quietly protect him. Liu felt a little comforted. He bowed deeply to the old plum tree, tears falling once more. Later, Liu passed the imperial examination and became a jinshi. He served as an honest and upright official with remarkable achievements, deeply loved by the people. He never married again, keeping the jade hairpiece with him always. Every night when all was quiet, he would take out the hairpiece, gaze at the plum blossom carved upon it, and think of Wanniang. Every harsh winter, the old plum tree in the courtyard still bloomed as scheduled, its subtle fragrance drifting just as it had when Wanniang was alive. Sometimes, Liu would see a faint white figure under the plum tree, indistinct, still carrying a touch of sorrow in her brows, yet with more peace. He knew it was Wanniang, coming to see him. She had always been there, never leaving.
Decades later, Liu retired and returned to his hometown, still living in the ancestral home, keeping company with the old plum tree and the jade hairpin every day. On his deathbed, he placed the jade hairpin under the plum tree, whispering his longing, saying he was coming to stay with her, then passed away with a smile. The next day, people found Liu sitting peacefully under the plum tree, clutching the jade hairpin tightly in his hand. The plum blossoms in the courtyard bloomed more luxuriantly than ever, their fragrance filling the air, as if a woman's soft whispers lingered in the courtyard, echoing for a long time. Since then, every cold winter month, a faint plum fragrance has always drifted from the ancestral home at the foot of Plum Ridge. It is said that the souls of Liu Mingyuan and Su Wanniang stay together under the plum tree, never to be parted. And the old plum tree has grown even more lush and leafy, blooming the most splendid blossoms every year, bearing witness to this profound love that transcends life and death.